Hey, hey, hey. How's it going? Welcome back to question numero dos of today. Or, I don't know what question. This might be question number 1 or question number 78, depending on whether you're watching this live, watching this later on, watching it in a playlist, where I have all the other questions that I've answered previously in previous weeks and months. As you guys know, this is a thing that we do here every single week, every Thursday afternoon. We just answer your questions. So, this week we had, 3 questions as usual. We already answered numero 1. Now we're going to go on to numero dos. And then we got numero tres after this one. So remember, we do, 1 live stream per question. Okay. So here we go. In this question, I am getting asked by Anonymous, all right? It's kind of, it's an interesting question because, all right, we're going to get into all that. You know me. I'll go on my rant. Let's give some backstory here. So the question is, are gated communities safe in Mexico? You would think yes, right? You would think automatically yes. And so some events happened last week. I think, last week some things happened out here locally. And, they've all been resolved, as of today, as far as I know. But long story short, it brought this very important question to light because I'm sure like everyone else out there thought that a private community, Privada, as they're called out here, a private gated community. Because there's plenty of private gated communities out here. We talk about it all the time. I prefer not to live there. I don't really show those areas. I might in the future. By the way, if you guys are interested in seeing a gated community, those videos that I do, the home tour videos that I do, would you guys be interested? Maybe I should ask that to the whole community, but I'm curious. Would you guys be interested in a tour of a home in the gated community and of the gated community? Now, with that being said, depending on what you consider safe and safety and all this other stuff will depend on whether you personally think a gated community in Mexico is safe. All right. Now, in the USA, a gated community, all right, and I guess in other places too, a gated community. We got a flyer flying around here, Jesus. Anyways, it wants to be on camera too. Anyways, it's that time of the year. In the USA, usually a gated community means that, you, for whatever reason, need to call the police, which in fact, most people that live in a gated community, they want the ability to be able to call the police for any disturbance and have the police like lapdogs, for lack of a better description. And so people in gated communities, in fact, the richer the community, the richer the homes, the richer the area, the more likely you're going to be able to, have the police there to police your neighborhood. Therefore, again, in the USA, you live in these areas, and anything is wrong. Let's say your neighbor didn't cut their grass right, or someone that shouldn't be in the neighborhood is walking through the neighborhood. Anything suspicious, anything weird, anything whatever, you call the cops, call the security, call whoever, and they're dealt with immediately. Usually, again, you have the ability to call the cops and call any kind of, emergency thing like that to take care of it. Now, some recent events that happened out here in Mexico, in this part of Mexico, but this is for all of Mexico, but in Merida, Yucatan, some things that happened out here recently in the last week, which we'll talk about a little bit here, it brought this question to light because all of a sudden, it seemed, by a story that was kind of put out there that the police, were not allowed to enter a private gated community. And, the question arose, people were asking it. We found out the answer. And this is the answer. All right. The answer is that basically no police officer, okay, no authority figure, all right, can enter any kind of home, any kind of private property, all right, without the actual permission of the property owner. And on top of that, not just they can enter, obviously, the property with a permission, but if they don't have permission, there's basically no way in which they can enter that property unless they have like some sort of court order, like a warrant, what have you, which is very, very difficult to get out here. So, for example, let's say that you are in a gated community, in a gated, building, again, a private building, and you have an emergency and you need to call the police. The police, we're talking about the police here. They're not allowed in. They're not allowed in unless you yourself call the police and you have like an actual like emergency, life or death at the moment, okay? They're not allowed in. No one can call them. They can't just come in. The gated community themselves, the gated community is a private property. You are renting in the private property. So the private property owner, which owns the gated community, even if you have an emergency, again, it has to be life or death, they're not going to be allowed in because the owner of the property it just says, no, I don't want to disturb the other inhabitants of the building. Okay? And by the way, this does happen in the U.S. as well. It just depends on the situation. Anyways, long story short, the police, okay, if you're just because you're living in a private, again, like let's say you're living in a, like I said, a private community, a private building, any kind of anything, okay, in which they have like a gate and security guards, and you need the police for whatever, they're not going to be allowed in. Now, we've talked about it many times in which most of the time you call the police, it's a crapshoot whether they show up or not. I think in most, in this city they do, most areas they do. But long story short, when you're in these areas, you got to remember that in Mexico is very different, and there's all kinds of people that are living in these private places, and that's actually adding more privacy and more security to these individuals. So, for example, like again, if you are in your home and you have a gate around your own home and it's your own private property, again, they cannot enter. The police cannot enter under any circumstance, all right? Unless you invite them in. So the same thing goes for that kind of property. You follow me? And you cannot invite somebody in if it's not your property. You're just renting an apartment there or a home there or what have you. So again, that's why, again, in a gated community, a lot of people that might want to be as far away from police or authority figures or other figures like that, what they end up doing is that they go to one of these communities because they know that, the police are going to get stopped at the gate, and that's as far as they're ever going to be able to go. All right. So that's why some people prefer some of these properties. But if you want full access to the police, and you need the police for whatever reason, a gated community might not be for you. Now, let's just say there's a fire. Again, knock on wood, nothing happens, right? But let's just say there's a fire, there's a medical emergency. That's a very different story. They will allow firefighters in. They have to. They will allow, emergency, EMS, again, the ambulance, the emergency vehicles, anything like that. So don't worry there. If you're having an actual, let's say, you're having a heart attack, let's say there's a fire, let's say, whatever it is, yes, all those are, they're going to barge right in. Don't worry about it. Okay. That's a different story. Okay. They're there to save lives, and that's a different story. But when we're talking about police, like, again, I know that there are situations out there. I don't want to get too detailed because, again, in Mexico is a little different when you're talking about specific people or specific situations. But, what happened out here this week, was that, there was somebody out there, all right? You know what? I don't even want to get into it. Forget about it. This is just a story that happened, okay? And this happens all the time. It just happened to also happen last week, all right? Let's just leave it like that because it's actually something that actually does happen from time to time. All right. So what actually happened, all right, was that there was a foreigner out there, an expat that basically was renting in a very, very, very expensive place, one of the most expensive places in the city. And they simply didn't want to pay rent, and then they didn't want to leave. And so then, because of, how things are out here with evictions, and it's very difficult. And, they're in a private, gated community makes it even more, kind of difficult. But long story short, an individual out there, was having issues, with the landlord for not paying rent. Okay. And again, like it happens many times. And both the landlord and the person being evicted were both having trouble, dealing with the situation because, again, the cops weren't even allowed in the building. You follow what I'm saying? I'm trying to be as vague as possible. But, the person was, saying, that they were being threatened and kidnapped and yada, 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 and those other stuff, which wasn't really true because they could just walk out, you know what I mean, of gated community. But then they didn't want to do that because that means they would leave their stuff behind. And that's what, at the very least, the landlord was looking for payment, But this happens all the time. This is not like a weird story. So this is why, again, out here in Mexico, you fuck around, you find out. And a lot of people, they think that, they can come out here and again, think that they're going to be entitled to a lot of the same things that they're entitled to in the USA, only to quickly find out they're not. So if you're in a gated community here, if you are in a private, gated, community here, you know what I mean? Like, you got to remember that the owners, if you're renting there especially, the owners are the ones that are in charge, not you. And the owners can decide whether they want the police involved or not, you know what I mean? And that, so on and so forth, all right? And basically, if you're renting a home, I'm in someone's private home. But if you're renting a home or a property or an apartment, and you're also within, a gated community, you know what I mean? Like, it's not what you think it is, all right? So that's why, for me, I prefer to be as free as possible, as open as possible. Yeah, I have my gates, like every good Mexican has around their home. Make sure nothing gets in, nothing gets out, in a sense, but it's that's it, me, you know what I mean? As opposed to having, like, having some other entity, like, again, the owners of a private building not allowing police officer to get in, or not just a police officer, but whoever, maybe a friend, maybe a family member, whatever it is, you know what I mean? So to me, that's not something I'm a fan of. So, by the way, today's kind of video is a little bit of a short answer. I just wanted to talk about this a little bit. This is, this question was brought to me by Anonymous. All right. And I just wanted to talk about this situation. I'm going to now, again, bring it to you guys in the audience to, again, ask me any follow-up questions, anything on this topic. We might be wrapping this question up pretty quickly so we can move on to the next question, which is going to be talking about taxes and all this other stuff in Mexico. And this is, it's a very short video that, again, an anonymous out there wanted me to, talk about real quick and really kind of just put it out there and touch on the subject, because, it's something that was happening here locally. Nothing I want to give too much attention to, but it did bring up a very important question, when it comes to, your rights in a sense. And so long story short, like in that situation where, let's say you come out here, you personally, and you are involved in a very similar situation, it doesn't matter where you are, but you choose not to pay rent, all right? Because the thing is like this. A lot of people get a misconception. First of all, I don't want to get into their story, but let's say that you need to break a lease. You can just break a lease. It's not that big of a deal, okay? You can just break a lease, sign another lease elsewhere, and you're good to go. That's what you got to double check, your lease before you sign it to make sure that you could do that and it's not really a problem. Because, again, there's really nothing that they could go after, all right, when it comes to that. So breaking a lease is not something for, someone not to pay rent. You follow what I'm saying? And so when somebody doesn't pay rent, well, then the individual that is renting the place, has to basically go through the government, for an eviction. But that is, the worst. So what a lot of Mexicans just end up doing, since it's their private property, other people are infringing on it. The rights in the system out here is very different. Basically, if you got to get pulled out of the house, they're going to pull your ass out of the house. Now, the reason that this didn't happen in this case was because they were in a very private, gated community, fancy schmancy schmancy. So the owner, the owner of the whole gated community, they didn't want that. Okay, they didn't want that whole situation to be happening, while the other people that are living there, because this gives a bad, image. So that's why it was taking a little longer than usual to kind of kick this person out. But at the end of the day, what Mexicans do is that, let's say you don't pay rent and you don't do anything, they start doing things like they'll cut off the power, they'll cut off the water, but that also takes time. Because a lot of times, you can't just shut off the power at the front of the house or the water, because you could, the person that lives here can just turn it back on. So you got to go through the power company, explain the situation, go through all this, so they can turn off the power, turn off the water, and then again, eventually they leave because there's no power, there's no water. And so that's what they did in the private community, because that's all they could do, so they just turned off the power, turned off the water, try to see if they can get those people out, and they got them out. But I don't even know how it really ended. I just know they got them out and that whole situation was over. But they were online, making all kinds of videos and making all kinds of whatever. I'm just talking about the case of last week. And yeah, to me, it wasn't, genuine. And I think the rest of the audience, everyone that was in town that saw what was going on, also thought that was very disingenuous, and they just left it there. But long story short, like I was saying earlier, out here in Mexico is very different. You fuck around, you really do find out. And the property owners, they, just like everything I'm always talking about in videos, you got to be responsible for everything. The cops out here are basically like a referee. They're basically more like a security guard more than anything else. So they're not here to really be the arbiter, the judge, the this, the that, unless they got like an actual court order or they got certain things in this they gotta. But other than that, nothing. So most Mexicans just deal with it themselves. And a lot of times when they gotta deal with something like this, well, remember, they got all the rights in the world, all the rights under the Mexican Constitution to deal with it however they deem appropriate, because now it's a civil matter. And, a lot of Americans, when they find out how, Mexicans actually deal with these situations of, not paying, or, committing a crime, how Mexicans deal with that, which is street justice, or vigilante justice. Oh, yeah. A lot of Mexicans, a lot of Americans are not used to that, are not used to the fact that not only can the Mexicans seek justice, whatever retribution they seem fit, but that the police are not going to get involved. Because what do you mean? The police are going to simply ask, like, well, if you owe somebody money, all right, and they come out there and you don't have the money, and they cause damage to you. You know what I mean? And you call the cops, and basically you tell the story to the cops. The cops would be like, well, yeah, of course, that guy did what he did. You didn't pay him. You're the one committing the crime. What's the problem here? You know what I mean? So it's very different. Very, very different. Now, again, if you're walking down the street, you get punched, or pushed by some random individual, yeah, they're committing a crime. But if all of a sudden you're not paying me, you owe me money, you owe me this, you stole something from me, and I had to beat the out of you to get that back. That's the way it rolls out here, man. That's the way things roll out here, man. That's it. So I'm just saying. So, all right, let me look at the chat, because I feel like I was going off on my tangent. I don't know. I don't want people getting the wrong idea here. I want to make sure we're all in. Okay. Belita says, I heard about the events that happened last week. Definitely an eye-opener, listening attentively. Yeah. So long story short, the deeper you went into that story of what happened last week here locally with that person, all right, which I'm trying not to give any attention to. Yeah, no, they were just scammer central. That's all they were doing. You know what I mean? It was just not, the opposite of what they were telling us, all right, with what that person was saying. Okay, someone's saying a tour of a Privada would be good. Right? The entire saga last week was a scary thing. I'd be wary of living in one. But again, honestly, it was really just because that individual was not paying rent. Was just, like it's happened many times. And that's just the way it's going to be dealt with, no matter where you live or what you do in Mexico, all right? So, It's like, oh, doesn't it just have to be the owner? Even the person on the lease can block people from coming in and out. Yeah, exactly. Correct. You're 100% correct. Correct. Yeah, so people have rights out here. So, yeah, no, 100%. No, there was no renter killed. Nobody died. Nothing happened, right? No, it was just, again, a renter did not want to pay rent. And then they were going on the internet saying, my life is in danger. They wanted to kidnap me. They're doing all these horrible things to me, because they say that I owe money, and that she wasn't being honest. That person wasn't being honest. And long story short, you know what I mean? Remember, this is a small town. You know what I mean? Everybody just knows everything. And it was just discovered that no, that person just did not pay rent. And that's it. It's as simple as that. You know what I mean? And, you know, that's it. That's where it ended. You know, there was nothing. That's it. And so, like, they were just looking for sympathy, you know, in order to not, you know, pay the piper. That's it. You know what I mean? And so, you know, this is a very typical story that you see online, that you see with people, with humans. And it's just, that's all that happened there. You know what I mean? Again, because as soon as nobody was buying her story, as soon as, you know, again, it was going days and days without having any power, any water, you know, no sympathy. She was finding out what the real laws were, and that she was and that, you know, the owner was actually trying to be as nice as possible, just trying to get rid of that person as soon as possible, as civilly as possible, taking a major loss. I mean, you know, basically that person just, you know, that's it. They had to go. You know what I mean? Because like they went on their own. They left on their own. Like the owner was trying to get them to go. So, you know, just like a pest, like a bad pest. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's more of a pain to get rid of the pest than you would initially think. You know? So, do security guards have guns at the gates? No, they do not. No, they don't. You know what I mean? Not only do they not have it, but, you know, no, that's not a thing. That's not a reason why you can have a gun out here. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. So, I never think they looked at it. Okay. Yes, correct. Crystal says not just a rental issue. It doesn't matter what the issue is. Let's say you're having a fight with your spouse. Let's say that you're having a fight with a neighbor. It doesn't matter. It could be anything. Okay. Literally, you're fighting in the pool with some whatever. Yeah, the police are 99% of the time not going to be allowed in. So, so are the rights the same if you call the police support in your rented home? Yeah, if you are in a rented home, let's say my home, okay, and I call the police, all right, and I want the police here, and I allow them in my house, yeah, of course. Now, remember, I am not a fan of any of that, you know what I mean? But yes, if you are, you know, you're down with that, then yeah, sure. You can invite them in, invite them to coffee, whatever. It's all good, you know? Atomic Rooster says, yeah, I bet there is more to the story. Yeah, there's a lot of story. There's a lot to the story. But, like, basically, you know, what the story boils down to. I don't know what the whole story is, and I'm not going to pretend like I know, nor do I really care. I just started to care because, you know, when the people were making false accusations and false videos and false stories of, like, I'm in Mexico, I'm getting kidnapped, they're taking this, and all this stuff, I had to... You know, and it's happening in my backyard. I had to kind of pay attention, not because I wanted to, but as I, you know, me and everyone else was looking at what was going on with that story, we were quickly finding out that it was just a typical person, you know, that would not want to pay rent. You know what I mean? This happens all the time. You know what I mean? Come on, they're called freeloaders. You know, we even have a whole name for them, right? I mean, there's nothing crazy here. But again, I don't know the story. I don't know. But I mean, again, if you do the math and you look at the story, it really doesn't take a rocket science to figure out. It's just like any other person that never pays rent or didn't pay rent for whatever reason. I'm not here to judge nor care. I'm just bringing up, you know, this topic because Anonymous out there paid that you have me answer this question, which is to talk about the gated community situation. And it came about because of that story. But I don't want to give light to that story simply because, you know, that individual out there was just trying to put a black eye, all right, on Mexico, on living in Mexico, and what it is to be out here. And I don't like that. And I don't think, not just me, but anyone else appreciate that. That's why the owner took thousands of US dollar hit, thousands of dollars, okay, from everyone's understanding, just to get rid of this person, because they would rather take that hit monetarily than get any kind of bad press for no reason. All right. And this is very typical behavior of certain individuals out there these days, where they yell wolf. All right. Too much. All right. And that doesn't fly out here in Mexico at all. And again, people are finding out the hard way. That, and this is why I'm making these videos, just to let people know. And again, this is not the only video I talk this about. I bring this up in many of my videos, talking about your rights. But your rights also mean that other people have rights, and it's not about feelings. It's not about anything. No, this is the way it is. And if you don't like it, get out of here. It's just the way it is, okay? And some people might think it's too anarchistic or too crazy or too, what is it, like too much freedom, whatever, however you want to describe it. But some people think it's just right and perfect, in which you're responsible for your own actions. You're responsible for figuring out retribution instead of giving it to a government official or some other official to fix things for you, which they never do anyway. So, all right, more questions. All right, let's see. We got some questions. Would the police be on your side if the landlord is crazy and you are up to date on your payments? Again, the police are there, as a mediator, but they're not there to arrest nobody. Like, for example, let's say that you are having a dispute. Shout out to Jesse out there. Shout out to you. Anyways, let's say that you're having a dispute out there with your landlord, all right? And they call the police, or you call the police. The police are called. And in the altercation, let's say you're having an altercation with the owner, and the owner hits you, commits a crime in front of the police, yeah, then yes, that's going to be a problem. Otherwise, the dispute will depend on the contract and depend on many things. So, for example, Jesse's asking me right now, let's say that you have a crazy landlord, but you have paid all of your payments. Well, the crazy landlord, again, fucked around and found out. And so what does that mean? Whether you call the cops or they call the cops, it doesn't matter. Most of the time, you are calling the cops on your landlord because they're acting crazy. And when the police is like, okay, what's going on? And you're basically going to say, look, here's my contract. I'm up to date. I have made all the payments because, again, I've talked about in other videos how you can prove that. So you prove all that. And as soon as you prove all that, they basically go to the landlord. Hey, you got to go. If you don't go, we're going to have to arrest you. That's it. All right. Because they're giving up the right of having that home when they're renting it out to you. So they can't just be there. They can't just, no, it's your home now. So they cannot be in your home unless specifically allowed in your home. You understand what I'm saying? So it's like now they're giving you the power of attorney over their house. Now, guess what? That's why evictions get complicated, because really, like, even if like the dispute is over an eviction, even the police still can't kick you out. All they can tell the landlord is like, all right, the law. You got to, like, if you feel that, he's lying to me, or you feel that this isn't right. Look, even if you're not paying rent, all right? Even if you haven't paid rent, the police hands are tied. And so what you need to do as a landlord is that you got to go through the system, through the court system, through the bureaucracy, and eventually get an eviction notice. And then with that eviction notice, it takes a very long time to get, then you go with the cops, and then they evict, all right? But even then, the person getting evicted gets a notice. Hey, you're going to get evicted in X amount of days, 30 days, X amount of days. And so it still takes a long time. So even if you have a crazy landlord, it's not in their best interest, because they know that if they get crazy, then you don't pay rent. And if you don't pay rent, then basically, it's going to take as long as it takes them, it's at least a month or two, before they can actually even go to the government to get this started, which is also going to take a long time. And basically, before you know it, you're probably in there 6 months rent free just because they want to act crazy. Yeah, no, it's not. And again, if you're in a private home, what they would have to do is that they would have to cut the power and the light off. But if you really want to play that game, you can also call and then just get power under your name. But anyways, that's just going way too deep, too hardcore, all right? But long story short, Irving Delgado says, can someone please tell me where to find the story? Look, they probably erased it already off the internet, Irving, all right? Unfortunately, all right? But you can go to Facebook and ask around there and find out there what happened there. But long story short, like I said, it's just a typical story of a freeloader that came out here, they didn't want to pay rent, and they got in a dispute with the landlord, and the landlord, was not playing nice, even though they were playing as nice as possible because it was a private gated community. But even then, what was happening was that the person renting that did not pay rent called the cops to the gated community so that the cops could escort them out with all of their stuff safely, okay? But the cops were not, first of all, not allowed to do something like that. And then, to add insult to injury, not even allowed in the private gated community. But even if it was just a regular, let's say here, regular home, like the cop is not there, to be your private security or to be your private whatever. That's not what they do. And if all of a sudden you're getting in a dispute on the street with your landlord over your own stuff, all right, it's not even considered technically stolen because you're already proven that you've been stealing from them. So they almost have a right to your stuff. And so I can go on and on. It's a whole complicated issue. So Mexico's just a different story. It's just a different animal. And so people come out here thinking that it's the USA, that they can just skip out on rent, they can just put it on their credit score, they can just, the people have no rights to, fight back, ask for retribution, and I can go on and on and on, all right? So, oh yeah, another YouTube channel has it. You can provide that there, If, I think, hold on, I'll find it real quick, let me see. You're right. I completely forgot. Thank you. Yes. You know what? Yeah, because I don't want to post I can post a link, I think. All right, let me see. I got to find it real quick. All right, and if you got any more questions, please, this will be a good time to ask me questions about the situation here while I find the video, so you guys can catch up on the local story. Because to me, this is not cool, man. Not cool at all that this person was doing this. But I am glad that Mexico taught that person a lesson, all right? And that's it. And this is another reason why I love Mexico, man. Because again, it's like another reason, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, that's right. You're not going to come out here and try to ruin it. That's the thing. A lot of people are like, oh, people are coming out here, foreigners, expats, they're coming out here and ruining things. No, they're not. They think they are. They're not. Because again, when the Mexican justice system is at work, man, for most people, it's a lot better than the regular justice system. So there's the video. I posted it in the chat in case anyone's interested. That's somebody else that has more details, and you can find out everything from there. You can watch it later. But oh, by the way, so Henry says, can private gated community security guards be bribed? Yes. So let's say that you got in trouble with, the gangsters, the bad people, the cartel, or, any kind of individual out there. Yeah, they don't even need to be bribed. They can just, many people can sneak into any one of these private communities in many instances. So it's if they want to come after you, they want to get you, they can get in there and they can get you. Now, again, through the bureaucracy, again, through the traditional means of like, hey, the cops and da-da-da-da. No, they can't do it that way. But, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, you can sneak in. There's, again, just like anything else, these things are not, Fort Knox. You know what I mean? These things are not like, you know what I'm saying? There are ways to get in, all right? And most people, if they need to get in, they can get in. This is why, to me, it's a false sense of security in many instances to have these things. So... Let me see. I'm just looking to see any more questions regarding this. So what do the guards in the community do if somebody breaks in with a gun? I mean, yeah, you know what I mean? At that point, they got to call the police, and that's when the police show up. Yeah, that's it. And the owners have to let them in. I mean, well, yeah, because it's a very different story, of course. Think about it. You know, you own the gated community. You own the building, all right, with inhabitants in it. And somebody with a gun comes in, you know, and they know that they came in with a gun. I mean, of course, you know what I mean? You got to have somebody with other guns come in there and take that person out, you know, whether peacefully or not peacefully, but yes, most likely that's going to happen. So yes, that's a good question, Blonde. See, Elizabeth, the person said that they were holding her hostage because she did not want to sign. That's not true. You know what I mean? Like, there's no, that's not. In what world does that even make any sense? What do you mean holding somebody hostage to sign a contract? I mean, you can literally just sign whatever and then leave and forever be gone, and that's it. What do you, I mean, how does that even make any sense? Especially if they're trying to leave and escape and go back to the USA. Listen, sign whatever. Are you kidding me? If that's really, oh yeah, you're holding me kidnapped, you know, and all I got to do is sign anything. I'll sign anything. Give me whatever you, it's not going to hold up in any court. It's not going to hold up in anything. You know what I mean? Especially if you leave the country. So that doesn't make any sense. But yes, that is true. You know, that's one of the things that they were saying. This is why I had to, like, in a sense, you know, look into this, even though I don't want to look into this, you know, dumbass scenario that happened. All right. But yeah, you know, at the end of the day, I see no more questions or anything like that, I think. But I think we're going to move on to the next one in a few minutes. So, but yeah, you know what I mean? Elizabeth says the person seemed as though they were not being honest and had this sort of breakdown, mental breakdown. Yeah, I mean, you know, to me, I'm not here to judge. I'm not here to anything, but, you know, not just me, but every single person that was keeping an eye on that situation, they knew it. They could see right through the whole charade, and you could tell. You could see in all the comments, you could see in everything that nobody was buying the story, and you know, it was laughable, honestly, to tell you the truth, because at no point was that person in any kind of danger. You know what I mean? Like I said, you know, she was basically skipping town with the Mexicans' money. You know what I mean? And basically, she's untouchable. The person's untouchable because they're an American. You know, I don't want to get into all of that, you know, but that's just the truth, really. You know what I mean? Untouchable meaning that, you know, that other Mexican wasn't really going to be trying to start something, all right, with an American, knowing that it's not going to go well. Okay, I'll leave it there. So, Blonde Truther, do the Mexicans have the right to bear arms? Yes, they do. And it's a complicated issue because there are a lot of gun restrictions. And so, but long story short, yes, you know, they have Mexico has their version of the Second Amendment. So everyone has the right to bear arms. But it gets a little dicey, meaning like the closer you are to the city, the less likely it is that you will be able to legally own a gun. The more you're out in the rural areas, the more likely you'll be able to easily own a gun. But yeah, you know, it's just, they make it very difficult, you know, for you to comply with the law. But again, Constitution says one thing, law says another thing. This is not what we're talking about here, but it is kind of pertaining to the question. But long story short, it's a whole complicated issue. But long story short, yes, you know what I mean? Mexicans have the rights to bear arms. I got 2 arms right here. I got the biggest guns you've ever seen.
Bruh.
Anyways, you know, how else do you think I'm able to walk down the street, huh? All right. I have never done a video on the gun ownership. No. And I don't want to. I really don't want to do a video on that because I don't want to do all that research. I don't care that much, to tell you the truth. The fact is that there are plenty of guns out here, all right? And, you know, just like the USA, I mean, you know, they're neighbors, and, you know, it's a main import. I don't want to get into all that, but you can figure it out. So people are armed out here. You know, they just don't show it. You know, they don't have it around, so, you know, don't get it twisted either. Now, is there gun violence? No. But again, you know, So. Yeah, exactly. So that person that was trying to skip out on rent, when they contacted the U.S. Embassy, when they contacted the U.S. Consulate, basically they got laughed out of the room because they're like, hey, look, we're not going to get in any civil, we cannot get involved in any civil disputes, especially when you're in the wrong. And that's basically what the embassy and consulate said, okay? Now, again, if that person really did kidnap the American or, do some harm to the American, oh, you better believe that the U.S. is going to get involved. In fact, they cannot wait to get involved. But the Mexicans know that. That's why they know that they're more of a pest that they got to get rid of. Because if that was a Mexican on Mexican, the Mexican not paying rent, whatever, listen, man, they would have pulled them out by their freaking hairs already, all right? Long time ago, all right? So, but anyways, all right, I think that's it for this one. So, guys, all right, we're going to now move on to the next question, right? And the next question, if you want to know what the next question is, all you got to do is go to my YouTube page. Again, just click the link there. The next question is going to be, do you have to pay taxes while living in Mexico as a foreigner? This is a question I get asked a lot. The question that gets asked, not just of me, but a lot of people are always asking this question. So if you want to stick around and have this question answered, all you got to do is, again, go to my YouTube page, all right? It's right there. Just click on my face, the face of me and my wife there, all right? You click on that. It's going to bring you to my YouTube page, boom. And then you go here and then you click on the video, pay tax, right? And then we're going to be here, all right? We're going to be in the chat, okay? So I'll see you in the chat. I'll see you in the next video. We're going to be going there in a second. But I know there's a lot of you guys out there that want to know how you can ask me a question for me to answer or a topic for me to talk about, like we've done today already twice. All you got to do is go to my website. All you got to do is click on the link that I have provided in the chat, that I provided in the description of the video, that I have provided in the in the comment section, and so on and so forth. But all you gotta do is click on the link and it's gonna take you straight. All right, hold on, I'm providing it again here. Anyways, all you gotta do is click on the link. It's gonna take you straight to my website. On the website, it's gonna bring you to this page, all right? That page is gonna just show you exactly what you need to do. You email me with your question. We come up, we agree on a donation amount, and I answer the question, and we're good to go. And if you want to know and want to see other questions that I have answered previously, all you got to do is click here or here or here or there or whatever. But anyways, I have answered already plenty of questions in the past, and I have a whole playlist, with all the questions and then some. Or you can just watch the videos on my channel, which again, I've answered plenty of questions and talk about plenty of awesome topics and so on and so forth. So with all that being said, guys, you already know the deal. I'll see you. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video, which is the next live stream, which is again a few minutes from now. See you there. Don't be square. All right, we're gonna start off in a few minutes. All right, see you there. I see you.